Hey guys, once again this is Michael the Comic Nerd. It is summertime at last, which for me means free time, which means more videos for you. So we're gonna get started working on this show again. So welcome again to Mike's Indie Corner. On today's episode, we're gonna talk about Life is Strange, episode 2.
Your rewind power has to be connected to that snow yesterday. Since you're the mysterious superhero, I'll be your faithful chauffeur and companion.
Now, the main reason I am talking about this one now instead of later, my next review in this series, I'm just looking to be Karma Flow, the rock opera game, which I'm still going to review, but honestly, episode 3 of Life is Strange just came out today, I guess. No, it came out a few days ago. I completely missed it. And I was like, you know what, I want to play that, but I want to talk about the second episode before I get into the third one, and, you know, I completely forget everything that happened in episode 2. It's been a while since I've played it, so I apologize if, you know, I kind of get lost in translation at some point. But anyway, Life is Strange episode 2. I talked about the first one a bit, how I thought it had potential. I like, there are some things I genuinely like about the game, and lots of things I don't. I still think, like, and this episode is a good step to fix some of the issues the first one had. It's not perfect. I mean, a lot of the issues that the first episode had are still there. The dialogue's still iffy. The lip sync is still crappy. Although, oddly enough, it could be just that I'm getting used to it. But the lip syncing didn't bother me as much in this one. The voice acting, though, a lot of it, outside of the main characters of Max and Chloe, very, very flat. Very bored, very kind of uninterested, or very stereotypical, and that's kind of annoying. This episode is kind of impossible to talk about without going into spoiler territory, so I'm going to save that for the very, very end. Because the ending of this episode, oh my god, it's fantastic. Like, this is the one where, like, it was a really ballsy way to go, and it's, again, without giving anything away, you can kind of pick up what's going to happen. I was able to figure it out, I think, 2/3 of the way in. I was like, okay, this is the direction we're going with this. But the way they go about it is very, very tense. And honestly, probably one of the best moments I've ever played in a adventure game like this. Really, really ballsy stuff. And so I was very impressed. And a lot of that comes down to how they're playing with the concept of the whole time travel aspect. This one focuses much more on delving into kind of what makes it, like, how these powers work, what are the limitations, what you can do with them. So I like that they're kind of evolving it more beyond just, like, it's a gimmick. I mean, it's still a gameplay gimmick, but honestly, I found myself relying on it less and less to, like, kind of go back and see what the other decisions were. I was still doing that, but not as much as I was in the first episode. Maybe it's because I'm more confident in my decisions, I don't know. But, yeah, a lot of the episode focuses on, this, I'm sorry, I gotta talk about the story on this one, so, stop a big old spoiler alert right there, be warned, we are going to talk spoilers from here on out. If you're following this game series, chances are you've already played it, and you know what I'm going to talk about, so, yeah, listen up if you want my thoughts on it. So, this one is largely based on the character of Kate Marsh, who is, who was going through a really, really rough time because she got this really, like, she was drugged by one college, like, this jackass college dude who, yeah, he's just a jackass college dude. He's the bully. He's, again, a lot of these characters rely on stereotypes. But either way, they released a video of her doing drunken, sexual, horrible stunts that she can't remember because she was drugged. But she's just horribly, bullied and shamed because of it. And right off the bat, there's just this feeling of dread to it, and you can tell, like, I kind of knew off the bat, like, okay, this is not gonna fucking end well. Like, this character is suicidal, this is not good, and there is maybe this is me, because, like, there is a genuine need, like, okay, you try to reach out, try to help in any way you can, despite the consequences. So I made the smart choices going into this, and then you get into the finale, where it all kind of pays off, and this is, like, one of the few times. This has always been the big problem with Telltale games, is the fact that, yeah, there are choices involved, but it's really debatable how much of them really matter, because a lot of the same events will happen regardless. This is a case where, like, at the very, very end of the episode, you see Kate after, like, she gets talked down to a teacher or something like that. She runs off, and then she threatens to kill herself off a building. Which she actually does. But, Chloe goes back in... I'm sorry, Max. Max goes back in time to go and save her. But she can't go back far enough, so she, like, pushes herself. She can freeze time and get to the top of the building before she jumps off. At that point, you have to talk her down. But the twist is that at this point, your powers are gone because you've used too much energy to get to this point, so you can't reverse what's happening if it goes wrong. Like, what happens here stays there, and that was very, very ballsy, and that makes the scene much more tense. Like, it made you realize that, like, how dependent you are on the particular gameplay gimmick to pull things off. Like, if you make a mistake, you can go back and change it. This is the case, like, no, once it's done, it's done. I mean, I guess if you really want to, you can, like, stop the game and go back if you really fuck up, but even then, you can't, because a lot of the ways you save her is dependent on the choices you've made earlier. And that's what really worked for me in this episode, is the fact that, for once, all these big and small choices actually have consequences. They actually lead to a conclusion that you can use if you're paying attention, if you were, like, reading the stuff in her room, if you took the phone call, you didn't take the phone call. All that comes into play on whether or not she eventually commits suicide. It's a very, very tense scene, because you make one wrong choice and you're fucked. I got lucky. Like, there was a couple points I had to guess, and thankfully, like, I guessed the right ones. So I was like, oh, sweet, she didn't have to kill. It's like, she survived for me. But there's this great uncertainty, like, oh god, I have no idea what's gonna happen. And, like, that shit was great. That was really well done. That was really cleverly played out. And it actually showed that your actions do have consequences. And it makes me curious to see what they're gonna go with later. If I'm looking at this Kotaku article, it looks like episode 3 ends in a good cliffhanger, so we'll see. I'll review that one after I'm done with it, I guess. But, yeah, that stuff really impressed me. That really shows, like, the potential that this company has in making these kind of games. They've shown they are willing to take risks, and they are willing to, again, tell a story where actions have legitimate consequences. Again, I love Telltale games, but how much action, like, consequences really have is debatable, and that's a thing that a lot of people complain about, especially in, like, Walking Dead Season 2. A lot of people are kind of having that. It's like, okay, we make these decisions, but the ending's the same regardless, so what's the point? This, like, there is a point, and it's a strong point, and yeah, characters will live or die based on your decisions, and it's kind of like the Game of Thrones wheel, like, you know, nothing is really safe. To an extent. I don't expect this to go Game of Thrones territory or anything like that. I don't think the writing's quite strong enough to pull that off. But yeah, like, that shows, like, there is great potential in this game series and in this studio. And it makes me curious what they're going to do in the future. Like, right now, a lot of the problems in this game are stuff I don't think they can fix later unless they want to go back and re-record some of the dialogue. But at this point, like, kind of like what's done is done. I don't know. Like, we'll see in episode 3 if they've improved on anything. Maybe the graphics might be a little better. I don't know. I'm hoping so. Uh-oh. And I'm afraid I'm going to take a commercial break because I am running out of memory. So I'll be right back in just a couple seconds. Bye. And we're back. Okay. Oh, gotta straighten it out a little bit. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, I think I've talked that one to death. So, I guess that's a convenient end cap to spoilers. So, yeah, let's talk about the rest of the game. The rest of the game is still solid. You know, it's kind of building up the mystery of what's going on, what's up with the superpowers, trying to explore where they come from. Max and Chloe, I still find the most engaging characters in the series. That's largely due to the very, very good atmosphere the game has at some points. It's not perfect. Like I said, like, a lot of people point this out too, and I agree with it, which is that a lot of the dialogue feels like, oh, this is what the kids are saying today, more than like what these people would actually say. Like, it's trying to write in the lingo and the angsty stuff, and it's like, it's adults trying to write for teenagers, I think is what I've heard described as, and that's an accurate description. And yeah, I would agree with that. That being said, there are still very good moments, and like, my favorite moments in the game and in the series so far are the quiet moments. The ones that kind of remind me, to an extent, of Perks of Being a Wallflower, except Perks of Being a Wallflower is different, better. But, it's those moments usually when they're just sitting like on a bench, or I think in this case they're walking on a train track, and you see the sunset in the background. It creates this great, like almost nostalgic or introspective atmosphere, and it's really, really subtle. And it gets this calm and serene, and these characters just start talking about just life in general, and that I think is when these kind of games work, and when these kind of stories work, is when it's not necessarily about like the sci-fi stuff or this or that. It's about kids trying to figure out the world they live in, trying to figure out the world and figure out their place in it. And that's huge. And that's huge for these like teenage-based storylines. And that's what make movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower good, is the fact that it's not necessarily about what's happening so much as it is about just teenage, like, sad and confused and like kids going through these big life changes, and they're trying to figure out where they stand in all that. They're trying to figure out what they think about the world. And that is one thing I do love about these stories. Beyond all the cliches and some of the flat dialogue, that is one thing I will think the series gets right. And it's why I'm sticking with it. Is because when it gets it right in that, yeah, they're at that point in their life when they're realizing the world isn't just what their parents have told them, that there's a lot more to it, and they're trying to figure out what that is, and more importantly, what to do with that knowledge. And that's a big step growing up. That's a huge thing growing up. I mean, I guess you can debate we also gotta do it the day we die, but especially at that early age when it's so much new stimuli, so much new information, and you're just trying to process it all. And it's a confusing and emotional and difficult time that a lot of us forget about because, you know, we get older, we have to deal with so many other things. We have so many other responsibilities that come into play that we have to kind of divert our focus on. We just have to accept what we've managed to figure out in the world and just use that to propel us further. But when you're in that teenage years, that is pretty much the focus of your life, is figuring out who you are, what you want, and what the world is to you. So when, like, the fact that the game has those little character moments where that instills that feeling of mystery and introspection, it's doing something right if it can stir those emotions up. So, like, this studio has a lot of potential, and I'm curious to see what they'll do after this series is done. Now, we got 3 more episodes left, so we'll see where it inevitably goes. I'm not hopeful that they'll fix a lot of the issues that are present in the past couple episodes, because a lot of this has been in development before, like, the first episode was released. I'm not optimistic they'll be able to change any of it, but I am willing to bet they'll be able to take a lot of the mistakes and a lot of lessons I'm sure they've learned doing this project and take it to the next one, which I'm hoping will be spectacular in comparison to this. So yeah, keep an eye on this company. Keep an eye on this studio, because they can do some great things. I'm hopeful. So I think that's all I can think of right now. Anything I forget, I can talk about the next episode. So if I were to give someone a score, I'm gonna be generous and say 7. It's kind of the 6.5, 7-ish area, but I'm gonna be nice and say like 7 out of 10. So yeah, I think that's it for this episode, guys. So I'll check you all in the next episode and keep an eye out for the. I got a few games lined up. I had one fan ask me to do a few, including like Bread and Costume Quest after I do Karma Flow. So yeah, keep an eye out for those, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Mike's Indie Corner, or whatever else I put out. You know, I have like 5 shows I'm producing right now, and like I got a couple more planned, so keep an eye out for all that shit. See you all later. Bye-bye.